begin the recording now. Thank you very much. Welcome everyone to this semester's first Brown Bag presentation. It is a wonderful honor to welcome you and to celebrate this wonderful publication and collaboration. The Brown Bag series is brought to you by myself, Marilén Loyola. I teach Spanish at Rockford University, and Dr. Orhan Erdem, who teaches finance here at Rockford University. He will be joining us a little bit later today. And we have a wonderful series ahead. I hope you're all able to join us for those presentations as well. Today's presentation, as I said, is a book presentation. I will be saying some things in Spanish and some things in English. Bienvenidos a todos los que están aquí desde cerca y desde lejos, desde Cuba y desde otros lugares. Es un honor tenerlos a todos aquí con nosotros y para celebrar esta gran colaboración y esta celebración del arte y la expresión creativa. Voy a presentar al profesor Cabrera primero y lo presento en inglés. Dr. Yoandy Cabrera Ortega is an assistant professor of Spanish classics at Rockford University. His research areas include classical reception, mythology, queer theory, and Hispanic poetry and theater. The title of his doctoral dissertation is Rage and Desire, Thymotic Impulses in Hispanic Greece. He has taught Hispanic and classical courses in Cuba, Spain, and the United States. He has also been an instructor of Spanish, classical Greek, and classical reception at Texas A&M University. He is an alumnus of the American School of Classical Studies in Athens, where he was part of the ASCSA school summer section in 2018. One of his most recent publications is Ballet Clásico y Tradición Greco-Latina in Cuba, Classical Ballet and Greco-Latin Tradition in Cuba, published by Aduana Vieja in Spain in 2019. He is the editor of our departmental journal, De Nos. Dr. Cabrera has been appointed a 2022 Visiting Associate in Hellenic Studies at Harvard University's Center for Hellenic Studies. He also received a grant from the same institution for research expenses, a visit to the center during the 2021-22 academic year, and as support for developing classics at Rockford University. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Yoandy Cabrera Ortega. Bienvenido.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm really happy to have so many people here with us today. I'm very happy because I see so many faces of really important people in my life and in my personal life and also my professional career. So it's great to share with you here today. My idea is, well, to talk very quickly about the project that it's not a project anymore, it's a book, right? So it's available. We're gonna share the link in case anyone wants to buy the book later. And then when I finish, we will have time to read some poems. My idea with the reading is to include students, collaborators, editors, translators, but also poets, right? So we're gonna have some poets reading their own text here today with us. And well, my presentation is going to be mainly in English, but then in general, I can say something at the very end of the presentation in Spanish, okay? So with this project, we try to achieve two goals at the same time. Well, to have a class of advanced translation in a college, right? And at the same time to have a project, right? A book project. And the idea was to have this book created. From the very beginning, the students began to make connections, have interaction, and read these Cuban poets, right? One of the first class, for example, was with Milena, who is present here today. And I remember, and my students remember, how the first discussion was with her poetry. And also that Chel Hernandez was another of the first poets we used, right, during our classes. So, and my idea from the very beginning was to put together both the theoretical explanation and the general introductory classes together with the poets we would translate during the second part of the semester. What happened was that COVID came to live among us, right? So in the middle of the semester, it was like March 2020, we had to begin having our classes online. So the students, it looked like a disadvantage at the beginning, but some way it was very useful for the second process of the project. It was, you know, reviewing and checking and editing the translations and the poems. So what we did during that process was that we had Zoom meetings, but at the same time, the students had to submit and edit their translations through Google Drive. So everybody could access anyone's translations and add comments. And from those comments, we began to build the project, right? From the previous selection I did for the class. This anthology has 21 poets. It was published in 2021. So that was a nice coincidence. And the idea of this was to put also together a pedagogical project with what happens in the classroom, right? With a publication where the students could see their own product and their own work. We had professional translators collaborating with us. Eliana Rivero is present here, and I'm really thankful and glad we had her from the very beginning, because she was the one who read the first version of the translations of the students. And she also read those translations again in the second moment of the project. And so from here, Eliana, all my love and my thanks. Really happy to have you with us here. Dr. Eliana Rivero is an emerito professor from the University of Arizona. And well, she's a great collaborator and a friend. And among other collaborators we had, right? Translators, a professor who taught at Rockford University was part of the translators. John Burns, right? Is that the name? Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. And then we had former students, so alumni of the university working with us, colleagues who were part of my PhD program, such as Kelsey Harper, who is here with us. Kelsey is a great linguist, by the way. She's an amazing scholar, and I'm really happy that I had a chance to share 5 years of my life in our PhD program. And then the poets, of course. And from some of the poets, we had great feedbacks. Nestor Diaz de Villegas, for example, gave us some changes he thought were important for his poems when they were translated, and so on. So that would be in general what happened, right? The process began during the semester, but then we had like a year after the semester, we had a year working with the poems, the translations, the short introductions I wrote about every single poet, and the general introduction I wrote. Part of the project and the group, right, the crew, was also Marilyn Loyola, Dr. Loyola, who read the last versions and translated at least one poem, I don't remember, and maybe one introduction, but she was always there in the process. So she was a very important person during this all this time, right? And what I say about this project is that, well, at the very beginning, my idea was to have just an anthology, but then it became a bilingual anthology. So it got like more complicated, but we made it. And the main achievement for me is, well, to have a good representation of Cuban poets, important Cuban poets today around the world, breaking the idea of nationality or nation or any kind of nationalism, and also giving the students the chance to learn and create at the same time. That's what I would say in general about the project. So now we can begin with the readings, and hopefully we're gonna have like 10, 15 minutes at the end to have some questions, right? Let me say something in Spanish. Bueno, en general lo que he hecho es explicar el proceso de enseñanza, de traducción, de corrección del proyecto y cómo se llevó a buen puerto. There was someone I didn't mention before, and it is Omuyoa, who is here with us. Omuyoa is one of the poets included in the anthology, but from the very beginning, she was working really hard with all the corrections. She designed the book, but not only she didn't work only in the design. She always was, checking, correcting, finding better options in many of the translations. So many thanks to Omuyoa. If we have something to be like proud of, I think that Omuyoa was part of that. So, and then I go back to Spanish. So, lo que hice fue explicar en general el proceso. He mencionado a algunos de los poetas, a algunos de los traductores, de los editores, de los que han trabajado desde el principio con nosotros, pero en realidad mi agradecimiento es a todas las personas que han participado en este proceso. No one ever said no to me during this process. So I felt so lucky that I didn't know I could have more than 40 people working with me in a project like this. And I just realized that I could do it. I'm really happy for that. Bring me the cable right there. It's on the floor. So now I think that we can begin with the readings. And maybe as a very, let me see what I do. Maybe this way is going to be better. Maybe as a very symbolic way, we can begin with a student who was part of the class. So I guess you can see her. Now I can wear my mask and you can unmask yourself to read. So she's gonna read some of the poems. You just have to tell me the page and then the people can see and follow the reading. She's gonna read in English, right? And then, well, you're gonna see the poem. Her name is Angela. Angela is one of the best students we have in our program. And I feel very lucky to have her in my class.
Thank you. The page is 221.
Okay.
Ángela, si puedes un poquito más alto, por favor.
Yeah, I
Sí,
will
o si te puedes acercar.
Sí, okay.
Sí, acerca.
Gracias.
Y entonces, the poem is in Spanish because she's going to read the English version.
Okay. The recruits. The military green is in their eyes. Young men that ask for authorization to go to the carnival and then board the trucks. The taxi cab in Yahweh or Santa Clara with the last of their money, their only money. They return with their heads shaved by the military green, their faces hurt by the blade, the older brother, the boyfriend, the neighbor's son. In the provincial night, they are the princes, the kings that have returned from Troy or the Crusades. Under fireworks, under the artificial life, they breathe the last air, the only air, and they enter the military green with their lovers. As the recruits, you desire a pass, an accepting gesture to your continuous service, a pass, a truce, a safe passage for your life forever. Like the recruits, only they don't know how to pretend.
Okay. Could you hear her?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Mhm.
Do you want to read any other poem? No, you don't have any other? Anyway, I have a question for you, okay? So as part of the class, will you share with all of us how it worked? How do you feel? What do you remember about that experience?
Yeah, I remember it was really exciting. And it seemed really challenging. Like I think I was a freshman kind of when it was going on. I was a freshman in college, and it's my second semester, and I was really nervous about it, but it was a lot better than I expected. It went smoother. It was a lot more fun too. So I was very happy that I have been a part of it.
Okay. Any favorite poem you remember? Any favorite Cuban poet you remember? Or any funny poem or any funny moment or translation during the class?
Yeah, it was by Legna.
Legna Rodriguez
Yeah,
Iglesias?
yes. Yeah.
What happened with her poem?
We were talking about it.
Mi pelvis pide pez, mi pubis pide pez, right?
Pues sí, no me acuerdo cómo va exactamente.
Well, what happened? What was the problem? What was the reaction?
It was funny. I don't know. It's a really empowering in a way. I think the poem itself, but yeah, it was just we were coming up with how to translate it in English, and we didn't know like exactly, like you can't really translate the meaning into English like the same way. But
okay, well, thank you, Angela. Okay, so now I'm back, and well, let me see. So now we can begin with the other people who are present here. I want to give the chance to some authors to read the poems. So the first one I have here is Nestor. So this is the list according to the responses I got when I asked people to participate. So Nestor, please share with us any poem you want to share with us in any language you want to share. And please feel very welcome. Buy the book, or if you read the introductions, or if you go to the library at Rockford University and check the book, you're gonna see that there is a general introduction about Nestor, and Nestor is one of the most important Cuban poets right now, at least according to my opinion. I'm happy to have him here with us.
Thank you. Thank you, Yoandy. Thank you for this great work. It's a fantastic, wonderful. I'm so glad that this book came out, because there's such a huge population of poets in this country who express themselves in Spanish, and some of them, many of them, are creating great poetry, great work, and the culture doesn't admit that it's a bilingual, to say the least, culture, but at the very least, Spanish, English, like in Canada, you know, in some other countries, you have, like for instance, you know, I live in a very Asian neighborhood with many people coming from different countries in Asia, but especially Filipinos. And of course, in schools, they teach Spanish because they were under Spanish rule, just like us, until the same very day in which we became an independent country. They did too on the same day, because the Spanish Armada and the empire fell, and then we were the last colonies. And Spanish was the language of the country, alongside Tagalog. But now they have an education in which, you know, they have 3 languages: Tagalog, Spanish, and English. So we, as a country here in America, we are behind many of these countries, like Philippines, because we have only 1 language, English. Even though you have a tremendous literature being created in Spanish every day here in the country, in the land, and nobody cares. So they're not at, you know, the same level. Both literatures and both languages creations are not considered on par, or whatever you call that. You know, there's inequality. It's a key word nowadays in everywhere you go. So there's a great inequality in those both languages. But you have Lydia Cabrera, the great ethnographer, that he lived in Flagler Street, died in a small apartment over there, and she's the preeminent, not only for Cubans, but for all the African Americans everywhere in America, and Africans even in Yoruba County in Senegal or whatever. Lydia is important, but it's not important in this country. Her work is being, you know, marginally translated. You know, in short, what I want to say is that we belong to a very ghettoified population. We are poets that write in a second tier, or a second hand, or a second citizen language. So thank you for bringing us to a forefront, Yoandy. And this is something that I'm not going to see because I'm too old, but in the future, we're going to see a bilingual country where people are more interested in what we do. And that you, my friend, are a forerunner of that future. Thank you, Yoandy. And anyways, all of my work, because I came here when I was very young, when I came here at 23, right out of jail, after 5 years of jail, I came to this country. Thanks to President Carter. And so I came in that exchange of political favors for political prisoners. And all of these little books came out in Miami. So this is one of the small publishing houses in Miami that you know, Yoandy. This is Ramon Alejandro's books, made in France, by the way, and illustrated by him. And these are very beautiful books, are, you know, now part of collections and all that. It was $10 in 1997, and now they're like $300 or $400, these little books, because they're collector's items. Now, the only thing that I want to say about the book is that I would I would have chosen a different word for translating Equívocos. There is nothing amiss in that book or in the concept of the book Equívocos, and I would have translated that title, and this is something, you know, this open discussion for your students and translators. I would have said equivocal. Turn it into a, I don't know how you call that, a past, participio, pasado, pasivo, whatever, but never misconception, because there's nothing amiss in the conception of poetry and in a anthology of poets. Misconception, no, equivocal, equivocaciones, no, se llama equivocaciones, no? Equivocaciones, and then in Spanish and in English would be equivocal, or at a very equivocation, something with equivocal, because we have cognates and the words that go from one to the other. So if I didn't take all my time, I like to read a couple of poems. Otherwise, then that's all I have to say. No te oigo.
I know I'm muted. I was trying to find a way to unmute me. I have 3 screens in front of me, so
Screen?
yeah, 3 different screens in front of me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Nestor, I would give you the time to read 1 poem, and then if we have time later, we can have more reading. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Are we all adults here in this gathering?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Entre comillas.
So here we go. This is a book of a cycle of sonnets that tells a story. So this is part of the story, and this is a man who sells himself for money, and in one of the person he sells himself to, it's a painter, and this painter paints this man naked. So this is a sonnet to that moment in which a painter paints this man naked, and it's a very beautiful man and well hung and well, ¿cómo se llama? Bien dotado. Entonces, este es el poema. El poema dice: desnudarte delante de un pintor fue tu manera de acceder al arte, en parte por calor, también en parte por mostrarle tus dotes, seductor. Con barniz vermellón quiso pintarte, entre papayas, trazos de color descubrieron tu piel al resplandor de las frutas, anaranjado Marte. De tu pinga que empina papalote parte un hilo hacia un cúmulo de gualda que declina en el borde de un mogote. Sucesivos reflejos de esmeralda y de fucsia recorren el lingote y resbalan después sobre tu espalda.
Well, this is a very good example of what I explained in my short introduction about your poetry, that you are neoclassical, but at the same time, you have the ability and the talent to put pinga and neoclassical elements together in a beautiful poem. So what can I say? I now have Milena in my list. So Milena Rodriguez is a professor at the University of Granada. So she's joining us today from España. And well, I will give her the chance to read. If there are short poems, you can read. Puedes leer 2 o 3, Milena, si son poemas cortos. You're muted. Ahora puedes hablar.
My English is no good. Is possible to speak in Spanish?
Of course, Spanish is a lingua franca.
Ya, pero bueno, queda un poco extraño en estas circunstancias.
No, solo dime la página y entonces yo pongo el poema en inglés para que la gente pueda seguir la lectura, ¿sí?
Bueno, hay 4 poemas en la antología, así que de todas formas.
Dime dónde tú comienzas, en qué página comienzas.
Sí, te lo voy a decir.
Yoandy, si puedes ver el chat, que acaba de hacer alguien una pregunta. Meredith Griggs, could we please see the poems being read rather than the former one? You mean the translation, Meredith?
No, she's right. This is
el poema, que quisiéramos ver el poema que la señora va a leer, por favor.
This is exactly what we are trying to do. Thank you. Entonces me dices la página y lo pongo.
La página, la que empieza 136.
Okay. 136, right here. Yeah.
Bueno, antes quería darte las gracias.
Okay, sí.
Adelante. Las gracias por incluirme en esta antología y por la propia antología. Además me he sentido muy identificada tanto con lo que tú dices en el prólogo como con algunas de las cosas que se dicen sobre todo algunas cuestiones que dice Idalia Morejón, y esta idea de poetas cubanos desubicados, ¿no? Me siento muy así, desubicada. Y creo
Bueno,
que además...
espero que sea en positivo.
No, absolutamente en positivo, es absolutamente en positivo. Y la reseña que enviaste, que creo que es magnífica, ¿no? Intenta también un poco... ya
Del
no
Iván
solamente-
Herrera, del Iván
Sí.
Herrera, ¿verdad?
Sí. Ya, porque no es solamente a los autores que has incluido, que yo creo que, bueno, lo he leído, hay algunos que no conocía, pero conozco unos cuantos y creo que son muy buenos poetas, pero además de eso, yo creo que el propio concepto de la antología da para mucho y que nos hace pensar, ¿no? En cómo se elaboran las antologías y sobre todo en la poesía cubana y en la situación de los poetas cubanos actuales, ¿no? Y creo que en ese sentido la antología tuya es muy original, muy novedosa y creo que muy certera para intentar acercarse a la poesía cubana actual.
Mil gracias. Tú sabes cuánto te admiro.
No,
Milena,
no.
además, es alguien que ha antologado y ha creado una de las antologías para mí más importantes de los últimos años, que se llama Otra Cuba Secreta. Y, o sea, que si alguien conoce de este tema, eres tú. Así que mil gracias. Mil gracias.
Pues muchísimas gracias porque o sea, agradezco muchísimo estar aquí en este acto y en la antología.
Just to clarify before she continue, that the poem read by Nestor before was not displayed on the screen because it's not a poem from the anthology, okay? But from now on, every poem read from the anthology is going to be in English or Spanish, depending on the reading on the screen. So, adelante, Milena.
Pues leo el primer poema que aparece, el primer poema antologado, que se titula, que trata de España. Tiene una cita de Quevedo, pido disculpas porque estoy un poco resfriada, mi voz no suena demasiado bien, pero bueno, es la que tengo hoy. Tiene una cita que dice, advierta al mundo nuevo el mundo viejo. Se están marchando, España, los que en ti parecían vivir y ser contigo. También, como nosotros, un día, sí, ¿te acuerdas? Nos fuimos de tu lado. Los llamas y no acuden. Aquellos, los de entonces, hoy ya no son los mismos. Inocentes, no saben que acabarán fundando también, como nosotros, Españas pequeñitas, Españas de juguete, clandestinas Españas, viviendo en otros nombres.
Well, thank you. Gracias, Milena. I will try to continue. Voy a continuar con otros poetas para darle tiempo a todo el mundo que al menos pueda leer una vez. Y si luego tenemos tiempo, ojalá que sí, leemos un poco más. Ahora quien tengo es a Dachel. Dachel es mi hermano del alma. Dachel is a very good and important friend in my life. We talk almost every day, so it's like to be talking with me. So just I will give you the chance to read whatever you want from the book. Let me know the page and I can show the poem in English on the screen.
Thank you, my friend. Likewise. Yeah, it's a real pleasure being here. So thanks, everyone. So, Yoandy, you want me to read a poem from the book?
Yeah, please, because this way, those who doesn't know Spanish can follow the reading.
Yeah, okay. So maybe let's read some page 171. Page 170. Yeah, I will read in Spanish if you prefer. I think number 29, you know, Jacinto. Yeah. Those are, well, let me just clarify a little. Those are like little poems, very short poems that are part of a, I don't know, it's going to be a future book that I call It's a work in progress, and I call it Greek grammar, so gramática griega. And it deals with, you know, like mythology, ancient Greece, and all of that. So, el número 29. Juega Jacinto en la charca pálida, sin saber el pobre que entre un dios y el aire pende su vida. Ninguno de los dos le preguntó si quería ser flor.
Yeah, please read another one.
Sí, número 30, number 30. Next page. Yeah, but you have to go, to the English page. Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
Dicen que a Ganimedes se lo llevaron preso por jugar con las águilas y viceversa. And
you can read Eros
38, Eros y
Yeah.
erótesis. Eros y erótesis. ¿Es Eros siempre una pregunta? ¿Lo incontestado es siempre inconfesable?
Well, thank you, Dachelle.
Thank you.
Dachelle is not only a poet, but also he writes stories, novels, and he's a very good painter. So I'm really happy we can have him with us today. And then next I have Joaquin Badajoz. Joaquin Badajoz is a very good friend as well. He's a wonderful poet. I began an essay about his poetry maybe 2 years ago. I haven't finished it. And I think he's one of the most beautiful voices in the Cuban poetry today that I have found. And I really enjoy reading his poetry. It's like having Apollo and Dionysus in the same room at the same time. So it's a gift. So Jochi, bienvenido, and read whatever you want. Well, you have only one poem, a long poem in the anthology. So I hope you're gonna read the one we have.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me here. For me, it's, I'm really, really thankful for, the translation and you thinking of me to be part of this project, especially because I just have a handful of poems translated to English, even after so many years living in the States. So it's always, really nice to see how your poems then get into, reshape and get into another language and take the, different breath. And it was great. So I'm going to read in Spanish. And this is a very political poem, the one you choose here. And it's very long. I am kind of, I don't know if I'm going to, taking advantage over the time of all the people, but I will try to read it really, really fast in Spanish. The title is Man Condemned to Live with a Rock in His Head. Hombre condenado a vivir con una piedra en la cabeza. De un lienzo de Pedro Pablo Oliva, que es un pintor cubano. Un hombre que escribe sobre un papel de niebla. El poeta no borra las evidencias de su crimen, no puede comerse a sus hijos. Sabe que de esa forma no se construye la inmortalidad. Parece simple, pero el poeta lo complica todo. Bastaría con replegarse a su escritorio, una oda vacía al arte puro, o prestar un servicio menor a la política que lo convierta en un loro premiado. Pero sabe que los héroes, esos hombres comunes, han preferido las duras sábanas de hielo, las luces de medianoche, los interrogatorios, porque ese tipo de muerte resucita. Le piden que se corte las venas, que se enmiende, que ocupe su lugar de bufón, para que le perdonen su insolencia, para que lo dejen comer las obras del banquete. Pero un poeta, aunque lo acosen, no puede desprenderse de su cola eléctrica amputada de lagarto amarillo, tragarse los versos que lo incriminan, las rimas que exprimen el corazón, un puño apretando la nada, con el rigor y la cadencia de una gota cayendo sobre la eternidad. Entonces quedamos mudos. Qué maneras tan graves, tan ajenas, como reses que rumian los pastos del verano. No hay techo y el poeta sabe que lo asedia el encono. Sabe que nadie perdona el vigor de una letra tan suave, una letra que no pertenece al reino de la violencia, sino que gira de los dioses, agua que llueve hacia arriba, y los tiranos no resisten las intemperies crueles. Te preferirían cantando en tu jaula, quieto, con la melena y la barba hirsuta, lanzando un verbo insípido que danza con su sombra, poeta, animal domesticado, lobo reducido a perro, que aúlla cuando pasa un escorpión, o el gemido del viento le recuerda esos incendios destruyéndolo todo. El hombre dice palabras remotas y cadenciosas, habla de estaciones cruzadas por angustias y desengaños, no vale nada hasta que se desangra. Pareciera volver al pájaro que canta, a la rama que crece, al San Sebastián asaetado, a la revolución perpetua, que poco sabe el tirano de estos dedos tan nobles, de esta carne tan mustia que se recoge en su espina, este hueso que se atraviesa en cualquier garganta. El poeta se equivoca, es obstinado, testarudo, vanidoso, frágil, pero antes de rendir la letra, prefiere el cepo, la muerte, que lo desmiembren, lo arrastren frente al Coliseo, cuando la poesía ha tocado en serio la caja de su espanto. Gracias.
Muchas gracias, Jochi. Bueno, veo que Legna está con nosotros. Legna, muy contento de que estés aquí con nosotros.
Gracias, Yoandy. Un besito para él.
Sí, ahí te está viendo. Ya lo agarró, ya lo agarró. Muy contento de que estés aquí con nosotros. Ya te habían mencionado. Una alumna mía habló antes de su experiencia y mencionó cómo tu poema le pareció muy gracioso y divertido y rompedor cuando lo tuvieron que traducir y analizar en clase. Entonces, bueno, te doy la oportunidad de que leas algún poema.
Dale, claro.
Sí, me dices en qué página está y lo comparto en inglés.
Ah, bueno, El cementerio. Está en la página 214.
Ok.
Bueno, yo también quiero agradecerte, Yoandy, por incluirme en la antología y también agradecer a Liuba. En algún momento me imagino que verá el programa por la reseña. También creo, no, lo que salió en Rialta fue tu prólogo. Fue el prólogo, ¿verdad? Buenísimo. Y me encanta decir que me encanta que esté Elsie, que esté Dachel, que haya tanto camagüeyanismo ahí y que esté Sergio García Zamora, que me encanta. Así que voy a leer El cementerio, un poema bien cortico. Todos formaban un grupo de hombres y mujeres revolucionarios. Nacieron a partir de la segunda década del siglo XX para ser revolucionarios en un país revolucionario y amar a su país más que a sus hijos y amar a su país más que a sus madres y verlo despojado de cadenas. Murieron a partir de los primeros años del siglo XXI, con la agonía revolucionaria de los hombres y mujeres que han contemplado orgullosos el amor. Fueron enterrados en tumbas de cemento que cuando llueve se filtran.
Okay. Muchas gracias, Legna. De verdad, muy contento de que te hayas podido conectar y compartir con nosotros. Legna también es una de las voces más interesantes, rompedoras y trascendentes de la poesía cubana de los últimos años. Visible, muy visible. Además, es una autora de novelas, cuentos y bueno, es un enorme placer tenerla con nosotros también.
Un besito.
Un abrazo. Yo quiero terminar, porque sé que no nos queda tiempo. Tenemos que terminar a las 50, Marilén, ¿verdad?
Más o menos, si nos pasamos un poquito más está bien.
Okay.
O sea,
We can have 5 minutes after Kelsey to have some questions. But I want to finish with Kelsey because we have a student at the very beginning of the reading, right? And now we're going to have a translator. So this way we have different examples of different collaborators of the anthology. So as I mentioned before, Kelsey was my colleague during my PhD program. Yeah, and I'm really happy she could join us. She was the first one, by the way, I lied to you before. She was the first one who responded me willing to participate today. So, gracias, Kelsey. Déjame saber, let me know what point you're gonna read to show the English version. What you're gonna read, English or Spanish?
Como quiera. English, I was gonna read Every Word is a Beggar on page 49.
Okay. Jorge Luis Sarcos.
Yeah, Jorge Luis Arcos.
So yeah, you can read it in English, and this way I share the Spanish.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Every word is a beggar, a well that is a sun, a legendary multitude. Every word is a beggar, and the memory is flotsam, and the bliss a strange itch. Ah, every word is a beggar, a wandering people, a reserved weather outside. Past and future kinships, flowing like rivers, being born with the dawn. Because every word is a beggar, a mausoleum of voices, either dead or unborn.
Well, thank you, Kelsey. I think this poem is a good way to at least close the reading part, because, you know, someone, mendigo, right? Someone like wandering around the world. Well, that is in general the idea with this anthology, where we have Cuban poets who live in Europe, the United States, Latin America, Cuba, and other different places in the world. So now I would say, Dr. Loyola, you can get the baton again. And then just ask whatever you want, or let people who are participating to ask the poets or the translators or the other collaborators anything.
Muy bien, gracias, gracias. Bueno, un placer y un honor tenerlos a todos y a los que leyeron. Me terminé emocionada, como pasa siempre con esta poesía, y muchas gracias por toda su expresión creativa, ¿no? Entonces tengo aquí a mi madre también, que es cubana y también está igual que yo. Así que thank you so much. I was saying I got emotional with these last few poems, and it is a pleasure and an honor to have you all here. So thank you. So we have a few minutes for questions. Does anybody have a question? Or a comment?
I have one.
Dr. Weeks-Baxter, sure.
I just think this was such a wonderful experience for the students. And Yoandy, I wonder if you could tell a little bit more about your publication process. Like, did you have a publisher lined up before you started working with the students on this, or how did that come about with the publisher?
Yeah, well, I had different options. I could publish the anthology with several publishing houses, some important ones. For example, I don't like to mention specific ones, but I will mention at least one that I knew they were waiting for a project like this. Verbum in Madrid would take this project and publish it. So I had another publishing houses in mind, but then I decided that I had the editors, I had the translators, I had the people to correct the translations and the Spanish poems. So I just decided to publish it as an independent publication. An independent publication where Omuyoa was designing and I was the editor. And then we had Dr. Loyola, Dr. Eliana Rivero, and Omuyoa again correcting everything. And it was a big and long process with different stages, different levels of corrections. And with these people, the translators, I had a group of more than 40 people. So I didn't need, at this time, I didn't need a publishing house. Well, maybe in the future, we decide to have, a similar, with a similar version of the anthology in a very important publishing house. But at that moment, I decided that with the help of our department and with this independent editing group, we could make it, right? Because it was not only me working as an editor, I had people backing me and checking everything, right? So I felt very comfortable and confident with this. And I think it was a great idea because we didn't have to wait for someone to send us the book to be corrected. It was us, directly us, all the time. And, you know, professionals who know and have been working, designing, editing, correcting for many years. So we were the group to do it, and we did it.
Well, I started a similar project on an anthology in my rhetoric class several years ago. We didn't get anywhere near the point that you all did, but I think it's an incredible experience for our students. And I hope you have in mind another project like this you might be working on soon.
Hopefully, yes. Well, next semester we're gonna be teaching. I am gonna be teaching advanced translation again. So let's see what happens. Yeah.
I think it's also really good for the students to be their translation already published, because I mean that's for their curriculum or many things, but it's important because sometimes the work that students do in classes, they end like nothing, being nothing. It's just a process, but that way I think they feel more engaged with the whole process. And by the way, I'm really happy with the quality of the translation. It's very, very good. And I know that my poetry especially is hard to translate because there are some kind of internal rhythm and things like that are really hard to, put in English. But I'm really happy with the translation.
Dr. Quinn, thank you. Oh, I guess she was signing off. Sorry about that.
She was saying goodbye. She was saying goodbye.
Se estaba despidiendo, hizo así. Yo creía que iba a hacer una pregunta. Any other question?
Yeah, I have a question. Does the book contain short biographical sketches of the poets?
Not only biographical, but they are critical at the same time. At the end of the book, you have the very short biographical information. Where they were born, well, Cuba, but when, and then the main, I think that we tried to add every book of poems they have published until now. But then the short introductions are more critical introductions. It's me analyzing their poetry, their style, the way they see the word through poetry. But sometimes, for example, in the case of Nestor Diaz de Villegas, yes, I use some biographical information because it's really crucial to understand, I think, to understand his path as a poet and also as an activist. But sometimes I don't need it. I'm more focused on poetry. In the case of Dashiell Hernandez, for example, I just talk about his poetry, his style, what I read in his poems. Now, those would be two examples to see how I approached. Every introduction, short introduction is different. It depends on the style, on the characteristics of every poet.
¿Y el análisis está en inglés o español o los dos?
It is a bilingual edition. So, but I guess that you're talking about introductions. Yes. That was part of the huge work because it was not only translating the poems, but also the general introduction, the longer one, and then the short introductions are also both in English and Spanish. So the book is, even the biographical information at the end is bilingual. So the book from the very beginning until the end is bilingual, including introductions, all introductions, poems and biographical information, etc. Yeah.
¿Y dónde se puede comprarlo?
I'm going to share right away where. Thank you for asking. It's on Amazon. So let me share with you the link. I know that our dean emailed me today, letting me know that she she's gonna send the link soon.
Y,
The professors.
Joaquín acaba de ponerlo en el chat.
Do you have
Okay.
any? Do you have
Sí,
any
sí.
small independent bookstores that are dying and they need to survive? Books and
Book.
books and books.
Books and books in Miami.
Romans here in LA. You know,
Yeah.
these smaller ones should carry the book so they can, you know, so people can be directed to smaller ones instead of Amazon. He now is the richest man in the world. He doesn't need our money. So let's give it to smaller ones.
Yeah, Nestor, you're right. I should contact them and send them, or let them know that they can. I can send them a bunch of copies for them to sell.
Send one and tell them, look, I have this book and I want you to sell my book, and I want to help you, and you help me.
Okay.
I can send
absolutely.
you the info of Raquel in Books and Books.
Raquel in Books and Books,
Yeah.
and Cristina Nosti in Books and Books, and they would pick it up.
Definitely, I will. Yeah.
Yo sí tenía una pregunta. No sé si tenemos tiempo, pero ¿cuál era el contacto? ¿Cuál ha sido el contacto entre los estudiantes y los poetas? So my question is, was there any direct contact between the students and the poets while they were doing translations?
Bueno, some of the, I was about to begin talking in Spanish. Some of the poets recorded themselves with short videos to be used in my classes while they were reading their own poems. But in general, they don't interact directly with the students during the process. It would be a good idea for a future project, right? But it was like, you know, it was so messy because in the middle of the semester, we had to change, and we were online completely. So what we was the moment when we had to readapt everything, and I didn't have the chance to maybe interact more with the poets during the semester because of that, right?
That makes a lot of sense. It would add a different layer to it, but this work that they've done is spectacular, so thank you.
Yeah, and at the same time, as a professor or a professor of translation, I would be also careful how many contact they have with the authors, because it is not letting the author to interpret the poem but us. There was one single situation with Milena's poem, and I called Milena directly, and I said, listen to me, I'm gonna tell you what I think you're saying with this poem. Let me know if I'm wrong. And I told her what I thought, and she told me, you are completely right. So that was the only one time, because you don't know that, but you had a reading. It was one of the comments we had from you at the very end.
I remember.
Yeah. Omuyo had another reading. Dachel Hernandez had another reading, and I had another reading. There were 4 readings. So I called her and I said, well, you are alive. So we have 4 possible translations here. Who is the winner? And I won, so.
Well,
but in this case, I would say, the only thing is that Milena is alive. I contacted her, and my interpretation of the poem coincided with the poet. But if we didn't have the possibility to communicate with Milena, we would find an interpretation where we all felt comfortable with. Yeah.
Right. May I speak for 1 second? I just came back.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the translation was done beautifully by the students, and it was revised and reviewed 1,000,000 times by the professionals. And one of our main goals was to keep the voice of the poet. The voice of the poet, and I, as a poet, writer, whatever, made a big emphasis on that Yoandy was totally in agreement. The voice of the poet is what we need to transmit in this translation, as we also wanted to show what the students did. The students did a fantastic job, guided by Yoandy, and then there were professionals that revised and reviewed and corrected. You can never please a poet that knows both languages in a translation, because in those cases, the poet would do it him or herself. Like in this book, the Catulo poem that is included, I translated it because as it is, the poem is bilingual. So I just finished it off from an initial translation that was done, because I wasn't totally satisfied. But we could not do that with every poet. But as an exercise in translation, I believe this is a very good anthology. In the quality of the content, I also believe it is very good. And it also shows a spectrum of Cuban poetry, as from Yoandy's point of view, as it is represented today in the first 2 decades of the 21st century. It represents all kinds of poets that are working, that are publishing, whether independently or via established publishing houses, and who are, saying something of importance about this phenomenon that is Cuba and its literature, and what it has to say. All these people from different generations, and that's another main point of this anthology. It is a chronological anthology. It is not a generation anthology. It includes poets that were born from 1945 until 1990. There are many voices, many backgrounds, many things to say in all those days. And that is a very good thing. I think that is lacking in the editorial field of Cuban poetry nowadays. So that's all I had to say. And thank you so much. And it was beautiful. Everybody read beautifully. And thank you, everybody.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Yeah, Nestor.
Second edition of this book to change the title to Equívocos.
I disagree. I disagree.
Strongly
I totally disagree with Nestor.
Equivocaciones y
Equívocos, misconceptions. I think it works fantastically well.
I don't think so.
Okay, well, and that's fine.
Yeah,
we all can disagree.
Whenever there's a use it.
Nestor, as the main editor of the volume, I assure you that I will take into account your suggestion in the future.
Thank you.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you. Second
Absolutely,
edition.
yes.
Third edition.
But I may say, Nestor, because I didn't want to talk about it, but you are insisting on it.
No,
and then I know, but all you are now is adding some information. From my point of view, I didn't want to add anything, but from my point of view, what you're saying was in my mind during the process, because equívoco is a beautiful word.
Exactly.
As a person who is a classical scholar, I'm in love with equívocos as a word. So in my mind was like, can I have something like that? But at the same time, I may say that from the way I introduce the selection and the way I say during the general introduction, guys, I can make a mistake. Maybe I'm wrong. Guys, something might be missing here. In that case, that the miss of misunderstandings makes sense.
Yeah.
Right, and not only that, I mean, the whole idea of Cuban literature as seen by people who are not Cuban, and in this case, Americans in general, because it's a bilingual, let's say Anglo-speaking persons, there's a huge misconception about what Cuban literature is. So there we go. Equívocos Misconceptions. I think they work fantastically well. And I will fight Nestor all the way to the end about it.
No, it's not a matter, that's not a matter of fighting. I'm an
No,
editor.
and I know, I think Nestor is a great translator, and he does great translating work, translating poetry, his own and others. And I'm totally aware of that. And I think that is fantastic that his input should be considered. Definitely.
Yeah, no, it's just when in these matters, you know, the discussions are just part of the process.
Of course.
And it's just you know, whenever I edit for a living, so I'm editing.
So do I.
But yeah, and so you do. So for a writer who comes back to me, you know, just not accepting, and then I just don't respect that writer, because I'm a writer and I work with the editors, and I find the work of the editors and the input of the editors of the utmost importance.
Of course, but you need to reach a final version of anything. You need a consensus, and in this case, we reach a consensus, and you could disagree. Yeah. And I used to love your back and forth about translations with Busto, Hernandez Busto. You always fought him on his translations. Well, and I thought there were lovely discussions, and everybody's entitled to their opinion and their editorial input. And it doesn't take any respect whatsoever away from the writer. You are a fantastic poet, and you are el estrangulador de la Flagler. And I have a book that a friend of mine, you signed it for me a long time ago, and I don't even know you in person. But you know, but you are a great poet, and I respect you there. But this is a project that was done, you know, and you're one of the poets considered, and it's great that you have that input. But we reached a consensus based on what we were working on.
But thank you. Are you presentable? Are you decent?
No, I'm right now, estoy tuerta y visca, y por eso no puedo salir.
Okay.
Un momentico para que me vean. Estoy impresentable. A ver,
no,
¿salí o no salí?
Maybe I don't agree.
No, es que sí lo estoy.
No, not at all. You look great.
It's great to see you.
No, además estaba trabajando en otras cosas mientras ustedes hablaban.
No, luces maravillosa. Y el parche que se usa ahora es lo último.
Sí, no. La poeta pirata, coja, además. Coja, disca, tuerca. No, ok, ha sido...
Thank you.
Este proyecto ha sido una labor de amor hacia la literatura, hacia la poesía cubana. Hemos puesto los participantes en el proceso, todo lo que hemos podido hacer, y hemos tratado de incluir, según el criterio de Yoandy. Yo no tuve nada que ver en la elección, ese es su criterio editorial, y yo estoy de acuerdo que consideró a poetas muy importantes de diferentes generaciones, y creo que se hizo justicia absoluta a muchos niveles, y me parece que tiene una calidad increíble la antología. Presenta voces Magali Alabao, empezando, una gran poeta, terminando con un muchacho que ni siquiera ha publicado en Cuba, que tiene su voz. Y en el medio, gente que ha publicado mucho, que es conocida, etcétera, y gente que no tanto, pero hay mucha calidad, y eso es lo que nos referíamos a la cuestión de equívocos, misconceptions, how desde muchos puntos de vista, solo se consideran a unos pocos, y somos muchos, y somos los de adentro, los de afuera, los de al lado, los que estamos, los ahogados, los etcétera, etcétera. Muchos en 63 años de este problema cubano, vamos a llamarle así por no empezar otra discusión. Entonces, por lo tanto, ya he dicho y me voy de cámara.
No, quiero darles a todos las gracias, porque esta última discusión yo creo que también capta lo cubano y lo internacional, y bueno, es lo que queremos fomentar aquí con los brown bags, ¿no? Que compartamos de todo tipo de ideas, y que la conversación siga, ¿no?
Antes que se vayan, quiero hacer una anécdota que describe una poeta que tú mencionaste ahora, esta señora, ¿cómo se llama? La de allá de Woodstock. Magali Alabao. Estábamos en una lectura de poetas y había 10 poetas. Eso solamente se le ocurre ¿Puedo hablar en inglés o en español? ¿En inglés o en español? ¿Cuál es? ¿Puedo hablar en español?
En inglés o en español. Yo sí,
Ya,
cuando termine, sí voy a cerrar la grabación y todo y nos despedimos.
Vamos a cerrar en grande. Mira esto. Estábamos en Miami-Dade Community College. There were 10 poets. Only at the Miami Book Fair, somebody comes up with the idea of gathering 10 poets. That's preposterous. So they did that, and I was among the poets, you know. Y la otra era Magalia Lavao. But at the very beginning of that long line of poets behind the ugly, horrible desk, like they do in these gatherings of poets, instead of like putting like plush little seats, a ugly desk. So we were there in front of the audience, and Magalia Lavao was number one. And then right after her, a very respected and old poetess from Miami from the 1960s and 70s. And then the rest of us. And then they make the introductions and they say, Magali's number one. And Magali says, oh, I'm sorry, I left my eyeglasses in the car. So I have to go to the car and get them. And I say, go and get them. And she goes, and you know what, the second poetess, you know, she was a Miami poet. She said, that was a ruse. I know her. It's a bit. She went to the car because she didn't want to be the number one reading. She wanted to be the last. And I was like cracking up because there were two great Cuban poets, and the second one said, "Look at the bitch. Look what they did. What she did."
Oh, bueno, pero es una actriz además. Ella hizo entrada y salida de un golpe.
Exactamente. But that was so funny that I couldn't believe it. She said, her reading glasses were in her purse. She just that was so funny.
Bueno, eso es lo que se merecían por poner una mesa de 10 poetas, ¿no?
Exactamente.
Okay, dale, Marilyn.
Thank you.
In any case,
thank you, Marilyn. Thank you.
In any case, this time, she was the first one, by the way.
Bueno, y con eso cierro y cerramos. Ustedes pueden continuar, pero yo sí voy para cerrar un poco ahí, concluir con esta presentación. Thank you all for being here and for this wonderful presentation and this last part of question and answers and conversation. I think was vibrant and beautiful, and we should only promote this kind of exchange. And I hope we can continue these conversations beyond our Zoom. Thank you all for being here and for taking the time out of your days and your evenings. It is a pleasure and an honor. And I'm going to go ahead and
thank you all.
Gracias a ti.
Encantado.